So here's where we're at. Little update on the 25th anniversary car. As I left off with the last video, I let you know that in this video we would be doing the alignment, which we're going to be doing. But we had visitors over the weekend, and they have since gone back home. And I wanted to catch you up on a bunch of the little stuff that we did while the owners were here. We've picked a paint color. So that means that Jeff Miller now has everything he needs in order to paint the body. It should be sprayed probably in the next couple of days, and then we'll just be waiting for him to let the paint cure and cut and buff the thing, and hopefully get that body put back on the chassis. But the most dramatic change, obviously, is we've got the 25th anniversary wheels temporarily put on there. We've just got them on there with some chrome lug nuts right now. We actually have the bronze lug nuts over on the bench, but I wanted to get those mounted because I do like to align the car and do the corner weighting with the wheels and tires that are actually going to be on the car. And with my shop wheels, they're not as wide in the back, and the way that I do my thrust angle, how I adjust the thrust angle on the rear IRS, it's nicer to have the wider tires, because that way I don't need to set my string up on a piece of conduit back on the back of the car. I can just wrap it around the back of the tire, and then I only have to put the conduit on the front and run the string parallel. So I don't know if I'm going to get into that or not, but that's why I like having the wider tires on there when I do the alignment. But we got some stuff done on the car. We got the trunk hinges put in because we're going to need those in place for Miller, but I left the struts loose because Miller's going to want to adjust the trunk, and he's going to want these to open and close with no assist on them. So that's done. We got our replacement seat harnesses, and we have fit them to the owners. Since they were here, we went ahead, we dropped the seats in. We've got the shoulder belts adjusted for the passenger. We've got the seat belts, or the lap belts, adjusted for the passenger as well, and the submarine. And you can see on the submarine what I ended up doing. So I ended up drilling through the Breeze seat mount, put a spacer so that this belt is still adjustable. You don't have to unbolt the seat to get it out, and you just saw that we're going to be using a leather shift boot. So since we're here and we're talking about that, I did get the transmission tunnel top in the car. So we've got this with some black vinyl on it. We've got the cup holders in. You can hear there's keys over in there, so it's rattling. And we chose a shifter. The Factory 5 shifter handle, for lack of a better word, sucks. It comes off at this odd angle. The shifter that comes out of the top of the transmission, and it always wants to bind here, and so you end up having to offset this hole or cut something. And you know, if you're just using the stock top, I guess it wouldn't be too bad, but since we build it up with a piece of 090 that's removable, and then our hardboard top, which is removable and padded and vinyl covered, it just makes it a pain in the ass. And so this is a shifter handle that I made a couple years ago. I actually made a number of these, and then I had them all chrome plated, and so I think this is the last one I had. So it resembles that you know, old 427 style shifter handle, but it doesn't have the reverse lockout feature. Now, I do have one of those that I bought from someone that was selling one on one of the forums or Facebook pages, and I offered that to the car owner. He just didn't like that reverse lockout feature, and honestly, I don't either. It's, you know, if you wear a bracelet on your right arm or anything like that, they have a tendency to get hooked. And you know, guys will argue with me when I say something like that, but it happens. Or even your shirt cuff as you're driving with a sweatshirt or a jacket on, it just wants to get caught on there, and I just don't like it. But so we chose this one, and then that leather shift boot is another part that I bought from somebody, you know, that was getting rid of some parts. We're going to use that on here. It it matches the vinyl that we did on the top. It's probably vinyl too. I'm pretty sure it is. And we're going to put that in to finish off that whole shifter assembly. But you can see over here on this side of the car, we've got the harnesses in over here. And then any excess that we had, because we had like 3 feet of excess on our belts back here this time around, I cut the belts off with a pair of shears, and then I went ahead and cauterized the end with the heat gun so that the end of the belt isn't going to fray. So that's all done. We pulled the GPS antenna out of the box. That's going to go probably here. Is where I've been putting them, because it's such close proximity to the speedometer. It's just like boom, right to there. That'll be right underneath the fiberglass body, and so that'll be good. And then we ended up filling the power steering reservoir because if it leaked, I didn't want to be the one to fill it. And so far so good. No leaks out of that. But then again, we haven't started the engine. So it hasn't built pressure, but the reservoir isn't under pressure anyways. So probably what you're going to see me do over the next couple of days is I'm going to start cleaning all of this stuff that the dust that Jeff Miller generated while he was doing the body work is still all over the car. So if you look at the dust on here, I've got to clean all that off. It's down in here on the top of the foot boxes. It's in here on the inside where we ended up cutting out the fiberglass for the windshield posts. So I'm just going to go through the entire, it's on top of the heater here. I mean, you can see it's kind of everywhere. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to give the entire car a good wipe down. And then I'm probably going to start working on getting some of the little details, like the footbox side here that we've just got held in with Clecos. That'll get put in for good. The other side will probably be put in on the driver's side. So we'll put the side panel in here, and we'll put the top panel in here. We'll wait on the access cover for the time being, but so that kind of stuff's going to get done. And probably the last thing I'll do in this video is get the car all aligned and quarter weighted and basically ready to take back to Jeff Miller's. And if I can get all that done in this week, that might give me a week, maybe a week and a half to get started on the other car, the Texas car. I'm going to go answer that phone. I'll get back with you guys in a minute. Blue Oyster Cult Godzilla. All right, it was that chucklehead painter from Indiana, Kleiner. So what else? Okay, so what else we did while the owners were here is we went ahead and we installed the seat heaters into both of the 25th anniversary seats. So I've got to reorganize some of this stuff on the truck, but I think you can see the cord coming out of the back of the seat there. That is for the seat back heater. And then the ones on the actual seat cushions come out of the back of the seat cushions, and those will be routed underneath, and we'll be able to plug those in to our wires that here back in the back of the cockpit. So we got those done. And then all right, and then over here in the trunk I took our 2 cover plates. Now these are powder coated black, so I think we're just going to leave those. I put them in place for the car owner and asked him if we wanted to leave these bare, just the bare powder coating, the black powder coating on them, or whether he wanted to carpet it, and he just thought that they would look better like this. And I think I agree, because unless you're really abusive, the powder coat actually holds up really well. And then I've got the other one for down here in the trunk, and we went ahead and we drilled our holes to mount all those, and we're going to pop rivet these in with black rivets. Now they're still going to be accessible, but if you ever had to get in there to replace the fuel pump, you're going to have to drill out the rivets, which isn't a big deal. It's like 8 rivets. Over here, same thing, I drilled them out. Now when you do the drop trunk like we did, you're going to have to be really careful when you drill your holes, because you don't want to go too far through and then hit the tank. So we've got those all pre-drilled, and those will go in as soon as we're done with Miller, because one of our bumper bolts is actually going to be accessed through here. So this bumper bolt right here is going to be accessed through here. That's how we're going to get it to bolt on. So we don't want to cover those up and screw ourselves and not have access to get our bumper bolts in. The other bumper bolt on this side is right here. So there's a hole right here in the back of our drop trunk that'll go right through there. No problem. Bumpers will go right on. Other thing that we did, I was smelling gas in the trunk, but I was only smelling it over here where the sending unit was. And so I had my suspicion that when the gasket went in, it didn't seat properly. And so we went ahead, we pulled that apart, and sure enough, I pulled it apart, and you can see just this one area where the fuel vapors had actually taken the petroleum jelly that I used to put on those gaskets. It had dried it out. Just the gasoline vapors that were escaping from that allowed that Vaseline completely dry out, because remember, gasoline's like a solvent. It's like a cleaner. So it just cleaned all of that right off. And we can see it didn't fold over, but it didn't seat all the way down into the notch when I put the sender in the first time. So I'm glad I checked it. We put a new O-ring or a new gasket in there. It seems to be sealing well. And so I'll just keep an eye on it. I didn't want the owner to go for his first fuel up after we give the car to him and then have fuel spilling out of the sending unit. So I'm glad we caught it now. It's done. It's fixed. And I think for now I'm going to start probably working on that shifter boot. So as you can see, I've got the stock Factory 5 shifter boot here, which is this and this. And then I'm going to go ahead, I had a shifter boot, a leather or vinyl one upstairs right here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get that in place. And then I'm going to probably fart around with the dash a little bit. I want to get some of those wires up and tucked away so that it's ready for our under dash panels when we get back from Miller's. So I'll bring you back in, just a little while when I get some of that stuff taken care of and show you what it looks like all done. All right, everybody, it's the next day. Actually, it's 2 days later. Again, I'm always going to try to be as upfront and forward with everybody as I possibly can. I'm reshooting all this right now because with this colder weather, I have just been hammered with allergies. And as I started to edit some of the content that I had filmed last night, I just couldn't do it over all the sniffles, the coughing, and this is just allergies. So you could only imagine what it'd be like if I was sick. So I'm going to start over and basically redo what I did last night. I just got out in the shop tonight, worked a little late today, so it's about 5 o'clock, I think, and so I'm going to try to catch you all up on what I did last night. So we're getting the car ready to do the alignment. And so while the owner was here on the weekend, we checked all the tire pressures. Now, here's something that I've said before, but I'm going to say it again here. When you have your tires and wheels mounted and balanced at your local tire place, or if they've come from Factory 5, I can almost guarantee they're going to have way too much tire pressure. So it's fine for rolling around the shop. I mean, it makes it easier, actually. If you got 32 pounds of pressure in the tires when you're rolling around the shop, it's a lot easier to push. But the problem is these tires are so wide. I mean, you can look, just the front tires on here are almost 10 inches across, right? If you look at my hand. So you put 32 pounds of pressure in there with a car that only weighs 2,000 pounds, you're just going to wear a bald spot in the center of the tire. The rear tires are even wider. They're closer to 13 inches or so. And so same thing, you air those things up to 32 pounds, you're just going to wear out the centers. So a good time to set your tire pressures is when you're getting your car ready for alignment. Get all your tire pressures set, and then you can go ahead and set your final ride height. Now, we set the final ride height on this one at 4 1/4 inches in the front, 4 3/4 inches on the back. And that's going to give us about 1/4 of an inch for those springs to settle as this car starts to be driven. And it's been my experience, they settle about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. So, and where you're going to measure that is you're going to measure from the bottom of the frame rail to the ground. And so what I do here is I've got a bar. I've got this square bar right here that I run from one runway over to the other runway underneath the car, and then I use a tape measure down from the frame rail to the bottom of that bar, and that tells me what my ride height is, and I do the same on the front side. So the ride height is all set now, and what I did after I set the ride height, actually let me back up. Before I even set the ride height, what I did was I went in and I trimmed these rear sleeves for the upper control arms. Now, I probably could have gotten by without trimming them, and I only trimmed off just the littlest bit. I'm going to show you here on the front one. So these haven't been trimmed, and you can see this round portion right here. It's hexagonal shape here, and then it's round right here. And so what I do is I just trim that round portion back to the point where it's on the hexagonal piece on both sides. So I'm really only trimming back just over 1/4 of an inch total, because it's like 1/8 on each side, and it just gives you that little bit more of adjustment. So when you're shooting for 7 to 8 degrees of caster, to get those spindles to lay back so that the steering wants to self-correct more and track straight, that's what we're doing. We're just trimming just the littlest bit off of each side of those so those can screw down more. Now, on these new SPC control arms, you also have to trim the actual studs that go into those. And so I cut 1/4 of an inch off of each of those studs, both on the driver's side and the passenger side. So both of the studs on either side, you have to trim those back too in order for that thing to be able to tighten down all the way where you've got full adjustment in it. So I trim those first, and then I set my ride height. So the other thing you'll see here is I've got our Teflon turn plates or turn sleeves that we use here, these sheets, and I've got 2 of them doubled up. And so what that does is the Teflon is super slick. It'll allow these wheels to turn really easy. So I can just push on them like this, and you can see they'll turn really easy. So I can do my alignment and not have to worry about going around to the other side of the car, cranking on the steering wheel, and then coming back and seeing if I've got it in the right spot. I can just grab the wheel and I can just move it where I want it in order to set the sweep when I'm setting my caster, my camber. And it gives me about a 30-degree sweep, so 15 degrees from center each way. And so I've got those in the front now. I'm going to work on the front of the car first, because the lower control arms on the front of the car are fixed. You can't change that. And so if you get the upper control arm set and you get your caster and your camber exactly the same on both sides of the car, what I use to measure off for my thrust angle is I measure off of the spindle here. So I'll use this cap, and that will be the measurement that I use for my strings across the back tires forward. I'll put a piece of conduit that I will attach to the front of the car here that comes out past the tires on both sides. I'll run a string around the back of the tire and then straight forward. That's going to be parallel with the car. And that will allow me to set not only my toe in for the back, but my thrust angle. And I don't know if I'm going to get into depth on how to do that, but just know that's how I do it. Now you can set up another piece of conduit in the back from where the bumper mounts are. The problem is that's easier to do when the body's on, but the body makes it harder to do the alignment. So that's why I started doing it off of the back of the tires, because I can just tie to something. I can tie my string to something in here. I can tie it to here, and I can wrap it down and around to the front and straight forward, and then parallel that line from the center of the car. And now I have a measurement from the front to those spindle caps that is the same on both sides of the car. So I hope that made sense. So Other things that we did, and I don't know that I showed the previous night, is we did get the top of the tunnel all squared away. So we've got the shifter boot installed, the leather shifter boot, the trim ring, the shifter. That shifter ball is probably just going to be temporary until we find something more permanent for the car, but that's in and all ready to go. So I'm going to work the rest of this evening on the alignment. I'm going to lower the car down a little bit, and then I'm going to work on getting both front tires set for caster and camber. And then once I do that, I'll have the strings up to do the back, and at the same time I can set my toe in and adjust the actual center of the steering with the same strings that I use to set the thrust angle and the toe in for the rear of the car. So I'll probably catch up with you guys tomorrow unless I end up picking up the camera before I go in tonight. But that'll catch you guys up. Like I said, I'm still struggling. Like I'm just having trouble breathing right now. So it was just unbearable as I was going through the editing process last night for that segment of the video, and I couldn't do it. So started all over tonight, little better, and catch up with you guys tomorrow. All right, it is the following day. I got a lot of stuff done last night, but primarily I did the front end alignment on the 25th anniversary car. And although I don't have the wheels aimed perfectly straight right now, I'll turn this around and you can see we have just a ½ degree of negative camber, and then I set our caster angle to 8 degrees on each side. Now I haven't set toe in, and the reason I haven't set toe in is because I'm going to do that at the same time that I do the rear thrust angle and toe for the back, because I don't have the strings set up. But I got both sides done. Now I did have to make a modification to my fast track tool when I had 18-inch wheels and tires on Slytherin. So what I did basically is I took a piece of flat aluminum stock. You can see it right here. I've got it attached with a wing nut, and I wanted to make it long enough so that it came down so that it would have a nice broad surface to kind of rest against. And then on the inside, it goes right on the inside angle of the fast track tool, and it just attaches with a wing nut there. And on the top, I just take the original fast track little pointer or nub, whatever we want to call it, and I spaced it with a couple of washers that are the same thickness as the bracket that it originally attached to, so therefore it's parallel with the point that it was previously on the fast track tool. Now, just like on my wheels, there's no good place for these little pointers to rest. Now, each one of these has a little piece of tubing, like clear tubing on it, that is supposed to go on the inside of a wheel lip. Like when you have, for instance, the Halibrands from Factory 5, you can see there's a wheel lip right here that you can rest that in, and you expand the tool so that it clips in here and it holds itself in. Well, you can't do that on these wheels because they're round at the top here. So there's nothing to like put that tool inside of. So what you end up doing is you put it in the crevice here between the tire and the top of the wheel, or the tire and the bottom of the wheel. There's 3 points on it. And then what I do is I just hold it on to the wheel like with a bungee strap, and it works actually pretty well. With the Factory 5 wheels, the Halibrand style wheels, a lot of times if you just barely bump the fast track tool, it ends, it's going to knock down and on the floor. Usually it lands on the runway, but still it's kind of precarious. So I've almost come to the point where I use the bungee strap to hold it to the wheel, even when I'm doing it with the Factory 5 Halibran style wheels. But so I got the front done, and tonight what I'm going to probably do is I'm going to start to get the rough numbers on the back, because when I'm setting the toe in the back, unlike the front, because you're doing it from a pivot point on the top and the bottom to set your toe in and your thrust angle, it messes with the toe. And so it's a constant back and forth. It's a lot easier now than it was when we actually had to pull the there used to be rod ends on the old T-Bird style independent rear suspension. You would have to pull that all apart, adjust the rod ends out or in, put it all back together, settle the car, and then move on. And it could take you an entire day to do the rear IRS alignment on one of those cars. But I can get it pretty close, probably in an hour, and then it's just going to be fine-tuning it. And it's small little adjustments. Again, baby steps. When you're getting to this point, do not make broad changes, because if you make really big changes, you're going to chase your tail. You're going to be back and forth, going one extreme to the other, trying to get it close. And if you just start making small changes to creep up on the measurement, you'll get there quicker that way than if you make huge dramatic changes. So I'm going to put the Fast Track tool on each of the back tires, see where we're at to start, and then I'm going to make some rough adjustments underneath the car that I think will get us close, and then I'll start working from there. So I'm going to work on that. I'll catch you guys back up when I get a little farther along. All right, the alignment's done. It's not bad if you break it up. Like I broke it up over 3 nights. Basically, I took the first night and I got everything set. I got the turn pads underneath the front wheels. I got the ride height set. I got the air pressures double checked, all that kind of stuff the first night. Then the next night, I did the front end alignment. And all I was trying to do on that was set the caster and the camber. I didn't even bother with the toe in until tonight, so that I knew that nothing would change on the front other than the toe in, because the toe in does not affect caster or camber on the front, although it does in the back. So you got to be real careful there. Although the back, the toe in or the thrust angle will change camber. There is no caster in the back, so you don't have to worry about that. But every adjustment you make to the toe in or the thrust angle on the back affects the camber because of the way the suspension arms are set up. So that's done. And that took the longest time. I got the one side. Because I know that I'm going to be about 4 inches from the front spindle cap, I knew I was really close on the passenger side. So I left it alone after I got the camber and the rough toe end set, because I knew I was really close. So all my energy was on the driver's side, and it took a lot of fussing. I had the lift probably up and down 6 times, 7 times before I really got down to the nitty gritty at the end. And it was one sweep of the wrench, and it's not even a full turn. It was like a quarter of a turn, and I got it perfect. So here's what I do, and you can do it different ways. I've seen guys set up pieces of conduit. Basically, you take your quick jacks and you mount them to the back without the body on, and then you can run a piece of conduit. And the conduit has to extend past the end of the tires so that you know you've got enough wiggle room on your string. And then same thing on this side. Since I do the front alignment first, and I know a kind of a rough estimation of where I'm gonna be or where I need to be, what I do is I tie a string around anything back here. I just chose this hole. I just did a slip knot through there and then came around, and I try to get it as close to the center cap as I possibly can. So it's wrapped around the tire here, but up here it's just touching the tire. You can see how the string moves. And that's what I pull this tight to. I keep adjusting this string either in or out, and you can see I was at the very edge. In or out, so that this string is just barely contacting that tire, okay? And then I measure off of the center cap. Now I can eyeball this one like this, but what I ended up doing for my rough is I went off the lug nut, and like on this side, it's 3 7/8 inches from the face of the lug nut to the string, and it's exactly the same thing on the other side. Now, on that side, I've got 2 lug nuts face up. Now, if I had all 5 lug nuts on it, it would be easier, but I've got 2 lug nuts face up on this side. So what I did was I double-checked my measurement. I've got 3 7/8 there. I've got 3 7/8 there, and when I go here, I'm right at 3 3/8, and on the other side, I'm right at 3 3/8. So I know that not only is my thrust angle now set, but then after that was done, because the center of the spindle isn't going to change, regardless of what the toe end is set on the front. As long as the wheels are fairly straight going forward, then you're fine. But to double check it, then what I did is I took the tape measure and I measure the front of the tire to the string, the back of the tire to the string, and since I've got about 3/16 of toe in, that translates across the front to the back of the tire about it's like a 1/16 of an inch in on the front. So my measurement from the back of the tire is a 1/16 of an inch wider than the front of the tire. We're dealing with a bunch of numbers here, and it's probably all getting confusing, and I'm sorry for that. But since I've done this a number of times, it actually gets easier the more times you do it. So we've got the front end alignment done. We've got what, a 1/2 degree of negative camber in the front with 8 degrees of total caster for both sides. And then we've got a total of toe in for the front, toe in, not toe out, of 3/16 of an inch. On the back, we've got 1/2 degree of camber. We've got just under an 1/8 of an inch toe in. And then we know our thrust angle is perfectly centered with the center of the car because of the way we set our strings up. So that's it. That's going to do it for this one, guys. We're probably, since I've got probably another week and a half to go before I need to get down to Jeff's to pick up the body, there'll probably be one more video before that, some of which may be getting ready to go to Jeff's. So look forward to one more video before we go down to Jeff's, and then I've made arrangements with Jeff. We've got a date set, and I've got the owner and the owner's son-in-law coming down, and so there's going to be a bunch of us down there the day we put the car body back on the chassis. So we'll look forward to doing that. As always, if you're enjoying the content here, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.